Dude, if you loved this movie, I'm gonna be
You're gonna be like, who are you?
I'm gonna be so shocked. Hello, welcome back to the Fifth Star. I'm Jamie.
I'm Albert.
And this is the Fifth Star Podcast, a podcast where we are trying to find our next 5-star rated movie. And once we find that movie, this podcast will be roadkill.
Oh, yeah. So today we're reviewing Kinds of Kindness.
Yes.
So it's the latest Yorgos Lanthimos movie.
Good pronunciation.
Yeah. So I almost
Pronunciation.
feel like I need to describe this movie first. But
Good luck.
yeah, I will say it's a anthology movie.
Yep.
So it's 3 stories in one. We'll kind of break it down as we get into it, but first I wanted to reference something from the second section where it's essentially about a guy who has his wife missing. She comes back and then he's suspicious because he doesn't think it's really her. So I wanted to ask you, we know we're both married, and how would you know if your spouse wasn't really your spouse?
Ooh.
Yeah. Like, what would they do that would make you completely confident and convinced that that wasn't really your husband? I have one for my wife that I thought of.
Whoa.
So I'll start with me while you're thinking. If my wife watched this movie with me from beginning to end and did not look up what was going to happen throughout the movie, and then the end of the movie actually said she really enjoyed it, then I would be like, you are not my wife. Because
That's a good one.
Because she, first of all, like, does not like movies like this. And then second, like, once a movie gets, like, tense, which this movie gets you there really quick, I think,
Yeah.
she would automatically go to Google and just be reading, like, the synopsis to know what's coming. And I don't think she would have made it through this movie with me.
Dude, this
you have
is
something?
hard. I'm trying to think of something, like, very specific. I feel like if he were to lose all interest in video games, I would know that it was not him. If he were to lose interest in, like, good movies, I'd know it was not him.
Okay. Like, if his taste in movies just turned totally, like...
if he started watching reality TV.
Oh.
I'd be like, who are you?
Like, he hasn't even tried?
He hates reality TV.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some, no guilty pleasure reality shows?
Not
ever?
really. Like, he has watched some. Oh, I guess Survivor is the only one he is okay with.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Me and my wife are into that. Okay.
So those are a few examples.
So one day when he, outgrows his love for video games, you're going to be like, you are not my husband anymore.
Dude, I can't even imagine.
He's not going to be like an 80-year-old guy still playing video games, right?
He might be.
Wow, okay.
I don't know. We haven't seen that generation.
That's true.
We might be the first generation to be playing, like, VR video games in retirement homes.
With our grandkids
Oh,
and
yeah.
great-grandkids. Well, we both wrote down our scores, our ratings for this movie secretly on the other side of this whiteboard. And now we're going to guess what each other gave it.
Oh, right.
I am going to guess...
I forget we do this every time.
Yeah, so
Like...
we go out of a 5-point scale. The lowest I go is a 1. Is the lowest you go a 1 for this, or are you gonna go to a point?
Technically a 0.5. I have rated movies that low before.
Man,
on Letterboxd.
I am genuinely considering guessing that you gave this a 0.5.
Whoa.
But I'm gonna be a little more conservative. I'm gonna say 1.5.
Okay.
I think you might have given a 1.5. What?
I was gonna do this upside down, but I don't have to.
Yeah. What do you think I gave it?
So, I feel like you've been really throwing me off lately. So
yeah, Jamie, come on, you gotta get back in the game.
Yeah, I thought I knew you, and clearly there's a lot going on in your head.
I have thoughts in my head.
There's a lot going on in your head that I'm just not syncing with. So I'm gonna say, I think you either gave it a 2 or a 2.5. I think you were more generous than that for this movie. I could be totally wrong though.
Are you trying to read my face?
Yeah,
I have a poker face.
Okay. let's say 2.5.
Okay.
Let's say 2.5.
2.5.
Maybe you were a little, more generous than
Okay.
this option.
So we're gonna reveal our scores after we kind of give our spoiler-free thoughts and part of our review, and then we'll go into a spoiler-free review. So,
Dude, if you loved this movie, I'm gonna be
you're gonna be like, "Who are you?"
I'm gonna be so shocked. I'm gonna be like, okay, tell me everything.
Well, the last time I thought that you were hate zone of interest, I think I guessed that you'll give it a 1.0.
You did.
And you gave it a 4.5. That threw me. So if you do that to me again, maybe I won't be as shocked as you might be for me. So, before we get into like our initial thoughts, to kind of lay a little bit more about the 3 anthology stories in case you guys haven't seen it. The first one is about a guy who works for Willem Dafoe, and he works at like an architecture firm or something like that. And basically, his boss wants him to do something that he really doesn't want to do, and it's kind of like a power struggle of him like trying to say no, but then like all these other things in his life start kind of going weird. And yeah, so that's kind of like the setting for the first movie. And then the second story is about a guy, as I mentioned, who is missing his wife. Like she's kind of lost at sea, and then she gets rescued, comes back, but he's he does not think it's her.
He does not think it's her.
Yeah, and then the third vignette is about 2 people who are part of a cult, and Emma Stone's kind of like the main protagonist in that segment. And she is essentially like
looking for someone who can raise people from the dead.
That's right. Yeah, there's some kind of like prophetic, Messiah or something.
Yeah.
And so they're on this quest to find that person, but it also has to do with her and her family, her husband and her daughter, that she's kind of like missing and wanting to see and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So with all that kind of groundwork set, what did you think of The Kinds of Kindness?
It was a lot.
Yeah.
Out of the 3, I'll say the first one was the most interesting, like my favorite.
Okay.
And that's also like the most tame of the 3.
Yeah. That's why there's a lot of things in this movie that I'm like, Jamie is not going to like this. I mean, disturbing, graphic,
you're
body horror, like all it's like everything you don't love.
Yeah.
All in one movie.
I was really confused about how they connected. Another part is there is like a character that's in all 3 stories that's always the same, but he's just initials, RMF,
RMF.
and he has no lines.
Yep.
But he's in every single story as the same like person.
And
I was trying to figure out, and they titled it based on
each
him.
one. Yeah, so the first one is called The Death of RMF, and the second one is RMF is Flying, and the third one is RMF Eats a Sandwich.
Eats a Sandwich,
yeah.
Yes. So I was trying to kind of figure out how they were connected the whole time. I was like, okay, what's the theme? What's the through line? And my main takeaway was that it felt like each story was about manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
In every single story, it was about manipulating people to control them. And that was kind of the through line, I guess.
Yeah.
That I found. But it felt kind of like difficult to really hang on to.
Yeah. It feels very loose of a connection. I mean, this RMF character is such an ancillary, character that it essentially doesn't matter like who he is in any of these stories. So you kind of, and even the titles themselves don't really mean anything. So it kind of like makes you feel like maybe there isn't a connection.
Mm-hmm.
So before you watched this, had you seen the trailer? Had you known that this was going to be an anthology? Like, did you know anything about this at all?
Well, okay. I forgot it was an anthology. Someone did tell me it was, but I had kind of forgotten about it. And then I did see the trailer a very long time ago, and the trailer doesn't tell you much.
Okay.
So I really had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Yeah. So I also had no idea this was going to be an anthology. Oh, well, I guess like no one even told me that part of it. So after the first story ends and then the second one starts and it's like the same characters, I was like, wait, is Willem Dafoe now like still controlling everything? And then like, so I was trying to like see like how is the story connected?
Mm-hmm.
And then it really honestly wasn't until the story starts where now they're playing totally other characters
Yeah.
that I was like, oh, okay, this is an anthology. So it took
Yeah.
me a long time to kind of even figure that part of it out.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I was also trying to figure out like what are the thematic connections,
Hmm.
and I kind of got some similar things too as you, but um, in each of them, it seems like there's a character who is stuck in a toxic kind of relationship, abusive type of relationship, and they are trying to kind of prove their love to this character.
Yeah.
So like in the first one, Jesse Plemons, like the whole thing is like him trying to like prove how much he's committed to his boss, and they also seems like there's maybe more than just a kind of work relationship happening, so there's these other things that are kind of hinted at. We'll unpack it more, I think, in the spoiler section. So it's kind of like about him trying to do that. The second segment, it's Emma Stone, who's the wife, and like she's trying to prove, I guess, to the husband, like,
Her love.
yeah, like that, like why is he kind of like, being suspicious with me? Why is he
Yeah.
kind of pushing me away? And then the third one, it's Emma Stone who's in this cult, and she gets basically put in a position where she kind of has to, you know, prove herself in a way
Yeah.
too. So that's kind of one aspect, and I'm like, maybe what Yorgos is kind of getting at is like, this kind of toxic nature of relationships sometimes that
Mhm.
happen where we end up having to try to like almost like go to insane extremes to try to prove ourselves and our dedication to these people and these relationships. I don't know,
Yeah,
like
I think
maybe.
and I was really thinking that about this more with the first story, but the first one it really felt like an identity crisis. And I don't think this is a spoiler because this happens like immediately,
Yeah,
but it's kind of revealed that this guy Jesse Plemons hasn't made a choice for himself in a very long time.
yeah.
And so when he starts making choices for himself again, it's like he doesn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so wild of a concept to think about. Like, if you're having all of your decisions made for you, I kind of was thinking about like coming out of the army or something. Like, all of your
Oh.
decisions are like made for you, and then suddenly you have to make decisions. And do you even know who you are anymore? It's
Mm.
almost like an identity thing. But then by the end, it kind of went a different direction. I don't know. I guess the
Yeah,
wife is a little like that, where it's like, what is her identity? But anyway,
yeah,
didn't quite work.
yeah. It feels kind of disjointed.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about it, thought through the movie a lot after watching it. Not because I really enjoyed the movie, hint, hint,
Hint,
but
hint.
but it does kind of like make you scratch your head, and then like it's like a puzzle that you kind of want to figure out. So much so that I watched this like 2 days ago, 2 nights ago. So last night I actually watched Poor Things because I hadn't seen
Oh
it.
my.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah,
juxtaposition.
because I was like, maybe that'll give me an idea. Like the only movie I'd seen of Yorgos's before this was The Lobster,
Lobster.
and I thought it was okay. Like I liked the concept of it, but I didn't necessarily love the way it all played out. But that didn't really seem as connected to the kind of feeling and kind
Mm-hmm.
of of this movie. So I watched Poor Things, and I actually liked Poor Things. I mean, it definitely has like things that are, disturbing and kind of, a little excessive, definitely for my taste and stuff too. But thematically, I thought it was really interesting.
Hmm.
And it kind of made me,
The world's really interesting.
yeah. And it kind of made me think about this movie in a different light, maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, because I think Poor Things is really him challenging like the social norms that we have in our society, right? In all types of ways. I mean, from like marriage, monogamy to like sexual like taboos and,
Mm-hmm.
like like kind of these things that we do in our society of like politeness, that he kind of questions all those things. So he's kind of challenging all those things. And then in this movie, I'm like, oh, maybe that's kind of like what he's doing. He's kind of challenging like these different institutions. So the middle story is a marriage, right?
Yeah.
And then the third one is like a religion. And so I'm like, maybe those are kind of the context that he's setting in. And then I thought the first one, maybe it's about like work and capitalism, like, so the other kind of thematic thought I had about these was like maybe the idea of feeling trapped. And so in the first one,
It's work.
yeah, like at work, like do we kind of in a sense like give up ourselves for our jobs and our bosses and stuff like that, and we're kind of subservient. And so, like in marriage, like how we kind of might feel trapped in a marriage because we're like having to prove our love or dedication to each other. And then the third one is, in faith or religion, and specifically in like cults, more specifically, right? How they control every part of like kind of your life and the way you think, and you have to be estranged from your biological family. And so, I thought like maybe that's kind of like, Yorgos seems to be really into those kinds of themes of like control and social like expectations. And
Well, I remember after I watched Poor Things, I think I gave it like a decent review because I remember I did enjoy the like world building and it was very creative and unique. But I did read one review that I definitely agreed with, which was this is the most feminist movie written by a man ever. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I did not feel empowered by this at all. And it felt like it was supposed to be female empowerment, but it was so clearly written by a man.
Yeah.
That I was like, yeah, you missed me. I'm sorry.
I wonder if that's, if you're representative of most women who might have felt similarly, or if other women did feel the opposite. I don't know.
I'd be curious. I mean, the review was a woman.
Oh, okay.
So-
That's
The review that I read was written by a woman. But yeah, I think I did kind of think about that again in this movie. There were a few moments where I was like, is it really necessary that there's like nudity right here? Like, why? It's not necessary. I don't think. I can't understand the artistic reasoning behind it. So I'm kind of just like mad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like a lot of moments like where I kept thinking, why?
Yeah. I think in Poor Things, and even though this isn't a Poor Things review, I think because it was just his last one, he's coming off such a successful, movie with that one, like won all these Oscars and all that stuff. And I think it probably was the studios saying, okay, like here, you can now do whatever you want.
Kind of.
And then so
But then no male nudity. Only women.
Yeah. So in Poor Things, I think like it also has a lot of nudity and stuff like that, but at least it felt like it served a purpose.
Right.
I thought.
Yeah. It was more of a story.
It made more sense like why it was there, but I agree with you in like Kinds of Kindness. It not only that, but just the kind of the grotesque parts of it, like just there are the disturbing elements. There are just things that happen that just seem just like completely trivial or totally random.
Yeah.
And yeah, like so for example, one thing was the RMF. Like it's an acronym, right, for this guy's name supposedly, but there are all these theories about like what RMF could stand for. And so I don't know if you thought about this, but so I kind of like try to figure out like what other people were interpreting RMF to stand for. And then like one was just that I thought was kind of funny was it stands for random male figure because that's literally what he is.
That's good.
Yeah. But the other one could be like maybe, some people were trying to figure out like, you have 3 segments in the movie and then, you have 3 letters. So does it stand for like R stands for, I don't know, like relationships, and then M stands for marriage, and then F stands for like faith, right? And then they kind of symbolize and stand for like the 3 different storylines.
That feels like a stretch.
Yeah. So I like that was like maybe that I don't know.
It'd be interesting too because at the beginning she like thinks it's a B on his shirt.
Oh yeah,
And she realizes it's just a bad embroidery job, but it's an
yeah.
R.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be kind of interesting if it was like two different words that like are
Oh
close enough.
yeah, that
B
could
or
be
an R.
interesting too.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
like boss. I don't know.
There you go.
um, but yeah, the other thing that was kind of interesting that I don't know if there's a spoiler, but in the first segment, the main character, so Jesse Plemons' character, Willem Dafoe, the boss character, and then also the Emma Stone character, they all have MF as your initials, their first last name. And yeah, it's like Rita, Raymond, Robert.
Oh, you meant RF.
Oh, RF, sorry, RF. Yeah, and they don't say the middle names, but we
Maybe
would
they all
imagine they
have.
all are RMF. And so I don't know if that says something, but I think you kind of mentioned it. I think it might have to do with identity. It's almost like, and if you tie that in with like the work theme, it's like maybe by us like giving our souls to corporate America, or whatever, things like that, that it ends up meaning like we end up giving up ourselves. We
Yeah.
give up our individuality. We give up our identity. Like everyone drives the
kinda
same
works.
cars, right? Everyone lives in the same kind of house. Yeah. So maybe speaking against like corporate, like capitalism or,
That's a good question.
yeah.
Can we talk about the acting?
Oh,
'Cause
yeah. What did you think?
Personally,
Mm-hmm.
like this is top tier level cast.
Yeah.
These are Oscar nominees and winners. I know they're very good actors.
Mhm.
So I know that they were intentionally coached to act the way that they did in this movie.
Oh, you didn't like their acting?
And I thought it was like an AI delivery. The
Really?
entire time I was like, this is AI written or it's AI delivery because every line felt robotic
Hmm.
and clinical to me to the point where it was really hard to see the characters as people. And I was wondering, okay, what's the intention behind that? And the only conclusion I can really come to is that Yorgos wanted them to be non-empathetic for some reason.
Okay.
Maybe to get more of the message across. Maybe to have us feeling like the
Like they're
police
not
officer in the second story where it's like, are any of them real? I don't know.
Yeah. Like he wants to strip them of their like humanity. Or
Yeah,
their,
it did give
something
me
like
a
that.
sense of tension and paranoia because, yeah, every character delivered their lines very strangely. Like it really sounded like AI to me.
Okay.
You didn't get that vibe?
So the only time I kind of felt like that was in the first segment where the Hong Chow character, like Jesse Plemons' wife, like she's delivering her lines in a very robotic way.
So
And
bizarre.
yeah, and the whole thing is about like, this boss who's kind of controlling all the elements of Jesse Plemons' life. So I was actually thinking like, oh, is she like a Stepford's Wives? Like, is Stepford Wives like, are they robots?
Yeah.
Is that okay? So I was like, is that what's going on? Like, is she like a cyborg or something? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, or all the
Weird.
characters cyborgs? Like, is the RMF characters? I don't know. So I kind of was like trying to figure that out, but it ends up not being the case, and so I ended up kind of dropping that. I actually thought like some of the acting was pretty good. Like I thought Jesse Plemons was pretty good.
I'm not trying to say they
Um,
were bad. I'm just trying to say it was really off-putting.
Yeah. Now there were some side characters like the police chief or like the psychiatrist, like some of these, or like the bartender.
The psychiatrist was really weird.
Yeah, like the way they delivered their lines was almost like they were like non-actors who were reading lines. It was like so bad, but intentionally seemed like it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the point of that was.
I was
So,
trying to figure that out. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know why he wanted it to be like that. It was
Yeah.
very intentional.
Yeah. And apparently like they do like lots and lots of rehearsals and stuff like that before they film, and so yeah, it was definitely intentional. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to, I mean, I think in spoilers we can unpack more of the details.
Should we go ahead and do it?
Yeah, but before we do that, what would you be before we do that, how would you rank the order of the 3 anthologies of what you liked most to last? You said you liked the first one best.
Yep, it's in the order that they're in.
Okay, so first, second, third.
Yeah.
I actually think I like the second one the best.
Interesting.
Yeah, the second one and then the first
because
one.
of the finger. For those of you who don't know, Albert really liked Banshees of Inisherin because he thought it was hilarious, and this is a spoiler, that Brendan Gleeson chopped off his fingers and threw them at Colin Farrell's door.
It was a dark comedy.
He thought that was funny.
It was intentionally meant to
So
be
now
funny.
I just think you have a thing for chopped off fingers.
Well, I do. We'll talk about it later too. But I do think this is also a dark comedy.
It is.
Yeah.
It's definitely a dark comedy.
And so I actually did like the second one the best because I thought that concept was really fascinating. Of like, if you were convinced that your spouse was not really your spouse, then like how would you act? And like it would make everything suspicious. And so I thought that was kind of creepy, but also hilarious in moments. And it was a story.
I guess that was a big spoiler.
Oh, was it?
I just spoiled it. Sorry, guys, about the finger.
Well, honestly,
I guess you're not gonna watch it now.
It probably doesn't even matter because it really is like completely pointless in a lot of ways.
You're right.
And then the third one was just like it was kind of boring for me.
Yeah.
And this is a long movie overall.
Yeah,
it's
long.
like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And for the first two, I actually was surprised at how much it was kind of keeping me like invested in a sense. But that third story, it was just like, oh my gosh, it just like kind of lost it. It deflated at the end. So with that, I don't know. I think
I'll reveal first.
Okay, you reveal first. I thought you would give it a 1.5 out of 5.
And you were extremely close.
Oh, 2.0.
2.0.
Okay.
Just slightly better.
Yeah. I actually really thought you might have given it a 1 or a half. So I'm curious where you even get the 2.0.
I think you're right, because like initially, as soon as I finished it, I was like, that was a 1.
Okay.
But then I thought about it more and I was like, that's not fair.
There's like some stuff in there that's kind of
And I actually did really like the first one.
Mm.
I actually enjoyed the first one. So
okay.
2.0.
Well, you guessed a 2.5 for me, and you were right.
I'm back, baby. Sorry, did that peak? I'm back.
You're back in the game. Are we tied now? We both have 3 right guesses, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I probably was between a 2.5 and a 2, but I think that second segment, it really kind of had me invested. It was like it kind of did give me like a twisted version of like Twilight Zone or something like that.
Yeah, it was each episode felt like a Black Mirror
yeah
episode.
Yeah, so I think because of that, I thought, well, it's like, okay, like this is pretty good, and I was invested. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, as a whole, like I think it averaged out to maybe like a 2.5 for me.
So I did have one thought about the final one, the final story, and I did look it up. With the last one, I remember when she gets contaminated. So she's in the like sex cult, and she gets contaminated from her husband, violated by her husband, which is that horrific. But
so unnecessary too.
I know. And so she comes back and she's been contaminated because she's not allowed to sleep with anyone except the founders, which is just and they kick her out. And she's like crying and like she's so upset. And I did have sort of this weird parallel of, is he trying to make a connection to the church and how they view purity culture of like, oh, you're not or you are impure now, so you can't be in our like fellowship or family, like an extreme church maybe would do to someone. And I was wondering if he was trying to connect it to religion, like organized religion, not just cults. And so I looked it up, and it does seem like a lot of people think that he views religion in a very negative way as a way to like control people and manipulate them and like make them do crazy things for the sake of God.
Yeah, and I think so even when I watched Poor Things and then kind of thought about Kinds of Kindness in that light, like they mention religion kind of in that light also. So yeah, it is clear like he has something against, just like, why do we have to be monogamous? Why do we have to follow what religion says and say like, you can't just be with anybody? And, like, so he kind of seems to bring that up like throughout some of his movies. So yeah, like maybe that's the case, but it's also weird because like, then it's like, okay, but they could have as much sex as they want with either of the two founders,
Yeah.
like, so it's not like
it was a very like dramatic, imperfect parallel
yeah,
being drawn. Where it's
yeah.
almost like these two people are like godlike
Mm-hmm.
because they're the founders. I did not get the whole like resurrecting people from the dead. I have no idea what that meant or what that was supposed to be about.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do kind of get the vibe that he's anti-organized religion.
Yeah, I think like, whether it's like specifically cults, but I guess broadly, it could be religion. I feel like it was maybe in general he's saying like, yeah, like these people get controlled, right? And they're trapped. And so that's what the Emma Stone character is. Like she's trapped. And, she still loves her daughter, but then she's not really like allowed, I guess, by them to go see her, or yeah, so I guess that part of like the controlling nature of these things. And so, going back to the first one, I think like how the Willem Dafoe boss is like controlling every element of their life, right? It has a lot of parallels to that cult, right?
Yeah,
And
that
all
like
these
godlike
yeah,
authority.
yeah, all these like random rules and stuff like that. Like the water, like they can't drink. Like it's like so ridiculous or arbitrary. But like, I guess he's saying like, oh, like maybe religions have just like these arbitrary, like random rules that don't make sense, but everyone is like trapped by them. I guess it's kind of like what he's saying. Just like how like we're trapped by, our jobs and corporations that dictate like all these different things. And it's interesting how like when he gets fired, right, Willem Dafoe goes like, oh, you can keep the house and keep the cars, it's been 10 years and not nothing, right? So it's like we spend all their time like getting these things and benefits, like houses and stuff through our jobs, yeah, and then but like at what cost, right?
Yeah.
And so
that makes me think of like Emma Stone's monologue in the second story about the dogs.
Oh my God, please explain that to me. I was like, what the heck is up with, and then the cutscene of like when all the dogs are just like
humans.
Yeah, humans, and I was like, okay, what is going on? That's when I was like, this is just a dark comedy at this point.
It was definitely a dark comedy, but I thought her monologue was super interesting because yeah, she was basically saying the dogs were the masters and they were good masters, and she would eat all the chocolate because dogs can't eat chocolate, which is funny.
Yeah.
And I think the parallel that was sort of being drawn there was how close humans are to animals, in my mind. It almost feels like
what makes us so different than them, but we act so differently.
Yeah, like when she started explaining that dream, I was like, oh, because her husband is falling into this animalistic way.
Okay.
Like he's sort of a cannibal, sort of is becoming a cannibal.
Oh yeah, and he likes eating his meat really raw.
He eats it really raw.
Like when he cooks it for his friends.
They have this really weird relationship with their friends.
Yeah.
And it's very animalistic to me.
You're right.
Like that whole story
Oh, so
and
they're
her
embodying
dream,
animals.
they're the
Those
dogs.
characters, yeah.
Like how far away from dogs are they?
So is he saying like we should be more like that? We should be, if at the end of the day we're just evolved animals, like
Why can't we just be animals?
yeah, why don't we just act like that?
I think it's a question that he's asking. I don't know if he's saying we should be, but I think it's a question of like how far off from animals are we? Like, are we really that far off, or are we more similar than we like to think?
You know, so there are movies that do that, right? But usually it's in a negative way, like we shouldn't be like animals with the way we kill each
Right.
other and all this kind of stuff. Like we should be more restrained and human and dignified, right?
Right.
But it almost seems like he's making the opposite argument, like why are we not more pure as animals? And
I mean, that story does have a sad ending though, so it does still feel like a tragedy or a what's it called when a story ends in a sad way? Oh, a cautionary tale.
oh, what is it like for of marriage?
Like a cautionary tale of, I don't know, needing to hang on to your humanity and not falling into that. That's all I got.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
It's the whole, every story was very vague, and
Yeah.
it felt there was like an emptiness there that felt like we had to be the ones to fill in the gaps,
yeah.
which is a little frustrating.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's poetic and great. Sometimes it's frustrating because the poetry doesn't quite work. The metaphor doesn't quite fit nicely.
And I think that's where like Poor Things was so much better as a movie, that's like a better constructed movie.
Yeah.
All the pieces like seem to make sense, and you kind of understand, even though like I might not personally agree with his outlook and his conclusions and things like that. Like I understand like what kind of world he's building and what, you know, he's trying to communicate. Like here, like that's very ambiguous. And I think like the thing that made me in a way like enjoy whatever, you know, 2.5 is like not bad,
Yeah.
like for how I probably gutturally felt about the movie. But it's because I think at some point I just stopped trying to overthink it, like while I was watching it. Like once you have the dog scene, I was like, okay, this is just silly.
Yeah.
And then other things like when
Emma Stone is like jumping, trying to sweat, she's like, "Come check me.
oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not contaminated.
Yeah, like that,
I'm
right?
sweating."
Yeah. And then like Jesse Plemons, like when he's the cop, he's like, you know, missing his wife, and then there's this like guy criminal who's like sitting next to him, and he's like looking at him, stroking his hair, and then telling his like partner, yeah, didn't you see the resemblance? Like he
I
look like,
forgot about that.
yeah. It's so ridiculous, but it's like kind of like funny. Or like Emma Stone driving around in like her purple like Dodge like Challenger and driving like Fast and the Furious, you know. It's so there's so many things that are so random and over the top ridiculous. And then to punctuate it all, like the movie ends with like RMF literally eating a sandwich, right, as he's been resurrected. And you know, and his character really meaning like nothing throughout the whole thing, and that being like the way he titles everything. So in a way, like I almost was like, you know what? I think if I just read this as like a dark comedy, like horror anthology, right? And he's just like having fun,
Yeah.
and it's just meant to be like, don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, okay, like I kind of get that. Like it's pretty funny in certain parts. Like kind of creepy too. Like I was actually surprised at how like throughout the first two parts to two thirds of the movie, I was actually like pretty like gripped by it, and was surprised at like how much time had passed. Like it doesn't feel as long, except in the end, the last segment, but it doesn't feel as long as I think the movie's runtime really is. And I think that was kind of impressive.
There's one other thought I had, which I also saw in a review, or was tipped off by a review, which was the opening song, "Sweet Dreams Are Made of These." And it was like, some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be used by you. And it's like, everyone is living a life that kind of works with the song. Is one of the lines, some of them want to confuse you? Or no? Am I just making that up?
I don't remember.
Each character can kind of relate to a line in that song.
They like embody some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Sweet Dreams. So like dreams are another kind of theme, like kind of motif throughout this. Like in the first one, Jesse Plemons, before he confronts his boss again, like he has a dream about it and it's like black and white.
That's right.
And then it cuts immediately to like
You're right.
him
They do
in
all
real
have
life.
dreams.
Yeah. And then the second one, it's like she talks about having had
The
dreams.
dog.
Yeah, like about the dogs and stuff like that. And then the third one,
It's the twins,
oh yeah,
swimmers.
she had a dream about this twin swimmers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then ends up being like these twins in real life. Like,
And they're
so,
all shot in black and white.
yeah.
How did I not like make that connection?
Yeah, so maybe with the song, it's like us being tormented by our dreams.
I don't know.
Some of our dreams torment us and abuse us. Some of them, I don't know, like control us.
Want to confuse you.
Or is it saying like our dreams to want to succeed in like the corporate world? Like those are the things that abuse us and control us.
Dang.
I don't know.
Maybe.
But also like back to the dark comedy thing, like as soon as the thing started and then like from the very studio opening of like Searchlight, and then like you hear like the Eurythmics turn on, and I was like, what is going on? Like, what are we in store for? You know? And I thought it was like a pretty hilarious opening. So yeah, maybe there's too many layers.
Maybe.
Like he could have just gone for mindless, silly fun, but maybe he tried to put too much meaning in it that is making us like now overthink it, and it kind of like undoes itself.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Any other
There's
thoughts
a lot for me.
to
There's
unpack?
a lot. It's not my theme. It's not my genre.
Yeah.
It's definitely like I could see how other people might give it a much higher score, but that's just
So
I gotta stick with that.
okay, well, I'm gonna lock in at a 2.52. After watching Poor Things, the one thought I had that I thought was kind of fun was I actually think the titles are wrong for both movies and they should be switched. So I thought if this movie was called Poor Things, it would make so much more sense.
It's true, they are poor
you know,
things.
like all of these people or things who were being like objects, you know, manipulated.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in just terrible situations. Like, so I thought that would work. And in the first movie, like, or in Poor Things, like it's all about different types of kindness. Yeah, like these polite niceties we have like in society, and
You're onto something.
I think those titles should have been switched.
And the lobster and the favorite should have.
Oh. The lobster kind of fit. I
No,
think.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was kind of funny, but so that's what we thought of Kinds of Kindness. Let us know what you think.
Let us know.
I mean, tell us, are we missing something?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know. Like, if you guys know what RMF stands for, please tell us. We're all ears. So leave us a comment, and follow us on
YouTube, Spotify, Letterboxd if you want. Apple Podcasts is also an option.
Yeah.
If you're an Apple person.
And, you know, we've been on like a stretch of a few movies that have been definitely a lot of thinking movies.
Big brain movies.
Yeah. So I think we kind of want to take a break from movies that make us think. So for next week, we are going to review Twilight.
Which I have seen.
But I have never seen. And so we thought it would just be fun. You know, it's October. It's getting close to Halloween.
Yep.
So, you know, vampires, werewolves, I guess it kind of fits the theme. So
And maybe we'll be posting Albert's reaction to it.
yeah. So
Stay tuned.
stay tuned for that and join us next Thursday as we continue our quest for the 5th star. Well, guys, that's our review. That about sums it up.